Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would chat with you guys a little bit about why I don't usually recommend that people mix rep ranges in the same workout. And what does that mean? That means you probably shouldn't do, other than maybe some of your smaller movements if you need them. You shouldn't be doing 3 and 4 rep sets in the same workout that you do 10 rep sets in. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, I do that all the time. I'm jacked, I'm strong, and no one is saying you can't get jacked and strong doing that. But what I am saying is that you are compromising potential workload for the week. In other words, when you start doing that, it can negatively impact your ability to train as much as you can recover from. Or let me state it a different way, you won't be able to recover from all of your training as easily. It's actually largely a programming and recovery issue. And usually what ends up happening is that if you do really, really heavy weights, again, 3-4 reps or heavier, your peripheral nervous system can only handle so much of that. And it's fine if you do something like Bulgarian training and you adapt to Bulgarian training. And people who've done that know that it takes a little while to get used to. Like at first, your maxes actually do go down, right? In other words, if you were able to squat 500 pounds and you come in and you try to squat 500 pounds every day, it's not going to work at first. You'll eventually get back to where you can do it, but it will take time. And you have to keep training volume really, really low in order to allow for the frequency, right? Individual days, the volume has to be low. And this is something that everyone who does that system comes back and tells you that volume is the enemy because it interferes with your ability to continue to do it every day. So in other words, if you have lifted heavy with any amount of appreciable volume, you're not going to be able to lift heavy as soon. Your peripheral nervous system isn't going to be able to handle it. And conversely, if you have done a lot of high volume with higher reps and you try to do it again more frequently, what happens? You can't replicate the same performance. So what I mean by that, let's say you did 5 sets of 10 on the barbell squat. You did 5 sets of 10 on the barbell squat. Your ability to do 5 sets of 10 on the barbell squat is going to be greatly reduced in the near future. In other words, if you do it on Monday, if those were limit sets, like that last set was pretty much taking a muscle failure or within a rep of it, or the last couple sets, you're not going to be able to use that same weight again. You're going to have to reduce workload. Well, reduced workload, even with the same reps, is generally correlated with less adaptation, less muscle growth. You're not going to be able to replicate it because the metabolites and everything are not going to have cleared out well enough for you to replicate that same performance. And it's going to be due to the metabolic fatigue. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if you train heavy and lighter with more volume in the same workout, such as you did, 3 sets of 3 with near limit sets with heavy weight, and then you did 3 sets of 10 afterwards for 6 total sets on a big exercise, it's going to be a little while before you'll be able to replicate the performance on either one of those again. And conversely, if you fatigued muscles that you need as small muscles in the movement pattern, it could interfere with your ability to perform the big movements later. A lot of people say, well, I do heavy with that, and then I do the lighter with the smaller movements. Well, you should probably be careful with how much volume you do even on those. Because if that is taken too far, let's say you do a bunch of triceps after you bench, it could interfere with your ability to bench heavy again soon. You would actually be better picking a heavier movement for lower reps for the triceps. And it's the same when we come back over to the squat. It's going to be longer before you can do that again. So usually what you find is that this is why periodization was created. And normally that's the way linear periodization is done, to where everything is put in blocks, and in the same week you train with the same rep range. But also this is the origin of concurrent style training. This is the reason concurrent periodization was created, for people who want to maximize weekly training volume and they want to incorporate multiple rep ranges and training in the same week. Because what we find is that varied training stress that has different sorts of fatigue at the muscular level and nervous system level don't always interfere with each other as much. In other words, you can do more total training per week with a higher level of intensity and more volume if you vary it in different training sessions. And again, this is what's been noted with things like the concurrent training. This is why you oftentimes see people who can get away with 2 heavy days and 2 volume days per week on this style of training. And that's the traditional concurrent training that champions have done. And that's also what people like Alex Viada have his people do, who are hybrid athletes who train in multiple disciplines because they need strength and power. So they have a strength training component, obviously, and then they have their endurance work and whatever else they compete in. Is that running a template like that 4 days a week and then doing extra conditioning, oftentimes even on the off days spaced out, allows you to train more volume through the week, and you get less overuse injuries. You get less fatigue that you can't recover from because they don't interfere with each other as much. In other words, your higher volume training days don't interfere with your heavy days as much as your heavy days interfere with your heavy days. And the same applies the other direction. And if anything, they oftentimes can feed into each other. So if everything is set in an ideal training volume and an ideal amount of training workload, the strength that you gain from the heavy days carries over to your work capacity on the volume. And the hypertrophy that you gain from the volume days, even if it's a tiny bit, you're done growing within 2 days, will carry over to your strength on the heavy days. And there's less interference with each other. There's less interference. And conversely, people who also do conditioning work on their other days and they don't cross them over. So let's say someone is running what you think of as a standard 4-day-a-week heavier, so max effort, and then either, like a lot of guys, dynamic effort or the repetition method is what the left side guys do with this style of training. You're running those spaced out through the week on 4 different days. If you do your harder conditioning work to improve your work capacity and conditioning, let's say your GPP on the other 2 days, and they're spaced out also, it allows for you to train with more intensity and more workload on all of the days versus if you mix them all together. In other words, if you were to try to do the heavy and the light and the conditioning on each day and do that 6 days a week, you're going to find that they will interfere with each other day to day to day. You're going to get more interference. You're going to be able to train less. And when I mean interference, it doesn't mean you can't do 3 sets of 10. It doesn't mean you can't hit a max triple. It means that it's going to be with a lighter weight. And again, we know, based upon countless studies, the lighter weight on individual sets, because you aren't recovered, let's say even because you took shorter rest times between sets, produces less muscle growth. Like, it's been studied. We know it does. Which should be no surprise. Training heavier for the same amount of total reps and total work and range of motion produces more muscle growth. It should be common sense. Tension creates muscle growth. And tension spread out over time, meaning over the course of a number of reps and a number of sets, produces even better muscle growth. But the tension matters. The workload matters. And people who train in this style are able to accumulate more total workload per week. Now, does this matter for someone who says, I just want to do full body 3 days a week? You're only going to train 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This isn't as big of a deal, is it? It's not. So it's possible to attain 80 or 90% of your actual progress, potential progress, within a week and still get really jacked, isn't it? In other words, if you only reach 85% of your potential every single month for the next 10 years consistently, you're going to be pretty strong and you're going to be pretty big, right? You're going to reach goals. So in that case, it doesn't matter. You know what? You have no trouble reaching 85% of your potential doing heavy and light in the same workout. Not a problem. But if you're trying to maximize and squeeze out that last bit of performance, such as for, say, the serious athlete, someone who is approaching it from that endeavor, it's a different ballgame. This is where this stuff starts to really matter. It starts to matter a lot. So when I say that I'm against the mixed rep ranges, I'm not saying for everybody, and I'm not being dogmatic about it. I'm not saying, oh, you can never do this. What I'm saying is you have to be very, very careful about it if you are trying to train with near your maximum recoverable volume every week, because you are trying to achieve maximum results. It will interfere. It will interfere with your ability to reach maximum results. And it's largely a programming and recovery issue. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.